The question that's frequently put to me lately is, why are relationships breaking down, both inside and outside Christianity, both in society? We've got all the relationships around the world. Don't have to go far to look today at relationships breaking down in our local parliaments, in our families, in marriages, in our churches. Everywhere we go, there's a breakdown in relationships. And I want to cover this in two different sections. The first one, I'm taking the passage out of Philippians, Paul's letter to the church at Philippi. And I'm reading from chapter 2. If you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any fellowship with the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and purpose. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Each of you should look not only to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. Your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on the cross. This passage really is the crux of why our relationships are breaking down. Because so often in our culture today, everything tells us we've got to be self-aware, we've got to be self-fulfilling. It's all about self. And so we're not really considering the other persons around her. But here in this passage, we're giving the example of Jesus. He considered others better than himself. He gave his life for others. He served others. He took every opportunity to deny himself so that he might serve the people around him. And that should be the way we live today as followers of Jesus. We should be people looking out for the well-being of others. Oh yeah, I can help that person. It might be just giving them a bit of advice or taking something to them. Particularly if somebody's sick, you don't have to be asked whether it's, just turn up with it. And that really overcomes people when they see you going the extra mile, that you even notice they needed help. Just stopping and helping somebody pick up something that's fallen on the roadside. Simple things like that, but we should be willing to do this. It should become automatic for us as followers of Jesus. So it's really, most of us are trying to push ourselves, our own wheelbarrow. Selfish ambition he's talking about. Do nothing out of selfish ambition. How many times do you hear people in the workforce, particularly, in the banking world, and somebody will say, oh, that's a good idea. They never acknowledge that the idea was somebody else's idea, but they take it upon themselves and they get all the kudos and they even get the promotions. But really, they've stolen the idea from somebody else. Instead of saying to the boss, oh, look, I was talking to Jack and he had this idea. It's a great idea. You ought to ask him more about it. Simple things like that. It shows in society. We've got to remember God sees that. He does. He watches us. And so we should humble ourselves and say, look, this wasn't my idea. Even if you start to go down that track, backtrack and say, sorry, this wasn't my idea. This was Jack's idea. So that's in the workplace. But in the family, particularly husbands got to consider their wife, and what her needs are. And he should be there to help her have her needs met. The same with the children. So often today what we're doing is running around, really, and not getting to know our kids. We're not really serving them. Sometimes to say no to them could be the best thing we could do for them. Do not always be saying yes and giving in to them and trying to make them happy, because you never will, I can assure you. So it's really allowing ourselves to let Christ live in us and to follow his example. Put others first. Yeah, it's going to be costly. And it is costly to put others first. And there'll be things that you'll never do in this life that you would have loved to have done, because there's only a certain amount of time. But it's far more important to live the way that Jesus lived. He walked on this earth looking out for the well-being of others. He served others, and he served them willingly. It wasn't, oh gosh, I've got to go and visit Jack, or I've got to go and visit Bill today, or Mary. It wasn't like that at all. He went because he knew that's what his Father wanted him to do. In doing, he was serving his Father. You know, as Jesus said, even if you give a cup of water to one of these, you're doing it unto me. And so it's not that we're looking for kudos. Well, no one will probably see what you're doing. But you're building relationships with people. And so often we get to share the gospel when we build relationships with people. It's amazing how many doors open up to us when we begin to not go with the idea we're going to win them for Jesus, but we're there just to serve them in a very, very materialistic kind of way. Often it's the beginning because you took time out and they know you've taken time, you've sacrificed to come to visit them, particularly when you get in the car and you travel 2 or 3 hours to visit somebody. Now that happened to us the other day. A single mum came all the way from Wagga, brought food up to us just to pray with us because she was concerned for us. This is the last week. 3.5 hours trip, stayed here 2 hours, drove home back to Wagga, and then went to work a night duty as a nursing sister at 10 o'clock. And now that is service. And we were delighted to see her. And she rang up last Monday and she said, and I was blessed in the giving. So I'm just using this as an example for you. She went more than the extra mile. She went over 300 kilometres just to come and 300 kilometres back just because she felt God was telling her to do it. So I'm just sharing some examples with you of service. We all not going to be doing that kind of thing, but she put herself out to do it at great expense for her. And so that's the kind of life we should have. Lord, is there something you want to do through me today? Is there some person I need to go and speak to, some lonely person? Or just to encourage somebody in the street? You don't have to really know why, other than God saying, hey, speak to that person. You'll be amazed at what begins to happen in your life. And you will start to find that your relationships at home, with your children, if you're married, with your spouse, begin to change, because God begins to open your eyes to see the needs that He wants to fulfill through you in their life. And that's the important thing. There are times when God doesn't want you to be out there. You're not the instrument of Him meeting that person's need. It might be somebody else. But He might have you to pray for them and pray that the other person will go and meet that person's need. So if we're going to build relationships, good relationships, in the family and in our society, we've got to learn to put other people first and seek their well-being in the presence of God. God's way, not ours.